Hey everyone, so the next step after creating our player is going to be coding them. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our yellow events tab and we're going to add a when I receive. Once I add the when I receive, we're going to click on the message and we're going to make a new message called green flag. We're going to click on OK. Once we have this, the next thing that we're going to do is go into looks and we're going to add a go to front layer. This is just to make sure that our player is all the way at the top. And then to set the size of our player, I'm going to go ahead and do 30 for right now. You guys can later on go back to it and continue playing around with the size, changing it until it's exactly perfect. You don't want to make the character too big, obviously, because then it will take too much screen space, but you don't want to make it too tiny because then you won't be able to see all the cool stuff you guys were able to add. And the last thing is later on when we do add our enemy, you also want to make sure that the player is a little bit smaller than the enemy, just so that the enemy looks a little bit scarier due to size. Those are things you guys have to pay attention to, which you can always change later on when we're testing out to make sure that everything is working. So since my player is facing down, because you could see that the main ship of the body is facing this way, so towards the bottom, we actually want our character to be facing upward for our game. So to do this, instead of having to go inside of the image and select everything and rotate it, we're just going to go ahead and add a point in direction 90. We're going to change this 90 to negative 90. And that should have our player facing the correct direction. Once we have this, now we're going to tell our player exactly where we want it to start. So we're going to add a go to block and we're going to change the X to 2 and the Y to negative 150. Once we've done that, now we need to set the actual speed in which our player is going. And in order to set the speed, we're going to make a variable. So we're going to click on the variable tab and click on make a variable. We're going to leave it for all sprites and we're going to call this X speed. Okay. So if you notice, our X speed is going to be specifically looking at moving left and right, which is how our game controller is going to work. So we're not going to add a Y speed since we're not going to be moving up and down for this space game. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a set block at the bottom. We're going to change this to X speed and we're going to set it to 0. Now we're going to go inside of control and we're going to start creating the controls for our game. So we're going to add a forever and then we're going to add two ifs, one behind the other. And then we're going to go into sensing and we're going to add key space pressed for both. One of them we're going to change to our right arrow and the other one we're going to change to our left arrow. Once we've done this, now we want to set the speed in which they're going to be moving. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my variable and I'm going to add a sets block for each of them. We're going to change both to X speed. The right arrow is going to be changed to 5, and the left arrow is going to be changed to negative 5. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into our motions tab, and we're going to add a change X by, so it knows exactly which positioning is going to be changing it each time. And we're going to change it by the speed variable that we have. So we're going to add our speed bubble in here. Then we're going to add a last set block. And we're going to change this to X speed. And we're going to go into operators and use the multiplication symbol. Then we're going to go back into variable to add X speed. And then change the progression of the speed by 0.9. Okay, so essentially all this is doing is constantly adding in a little bit of speed as the game continues and is keeping track of the speed that we have for our left and right arrow and making sure that they're both the same as it continues. So now that we have this set up, if you notice right now, this code is not going to work only because we have a when I receive green flag, but we don't have when I when I broadcast it. So you need this broadcast green flag in order for it to work. If you do want to test it out to make sure that everything is working, you can go ahead and add a when green flag is clicked instead for right now. And then when you click on the green flag, you should see the spaceship show up, and then you should be able to move it left and right. Okay. So if you see, my spaceship might be still a little bit too big, so I might change this to 25. And I can also change maybe the Y position a little bit more, just so that it moves up away so you can see it more. So I move the actual image, and then this Y tells me the new Y that I should put. So it should be negative 138. So now when I click on my green flag, here I have my spaceship position where I can see everything and a good amount of size. Just remember that later on, when you do need to create the intro screen, you will need to set this back to where it was, because it needs this in order to run the code afterwards. But for right now, to test it, you can go ahead and do this. Just make sure to change it back right after, and then you will be all set.